The champagne flute slipped from Marcus Chen's fingers, shattering against the marble floor of his penthouse, but he barely heard it. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the glittering skyline of Manhattan, blurred as tears filled his eyes, not from the broken glass, but from the broken trust. 24 hours ago, he'd been planning his wedding. Now, dressed in a borrowed chauffeur's uniform that smelled faintly of cigarettes and cheap cologne, he was about to discover whether the woman he loved saw him as a person, or just a bank account. The weight of his engagement ring, still in his pocket, never given, felt heavier than any business deal he'd ever closed. Some truths he was learning cost more than money could measure. Marcus had built Chen Technologies from nothing. At 32, he was worth over $400 million, his face regularly appearing in Forbes and Fortune. But success had come with a price: paranoia. Every smile seemed calculated, every friendship transactional. When he'd met Jennifer Morrison at a charity gala 6 months ago, something felt different. She was a middle school teacher, unimpressed by wealth, laughing at his jokes rather than his net worth, or so he thought. Yesterday, his college roommate David had pulled him aside at their weekly basketball game. "Mark, I need to tell you something about Jennifer." The words that followed had demolished him. David's girlfriend worked at Jennifer's school and had overheard conversations, terrible conversations about Marcus being useful, about his money solving all her problems, about how she'd finally hit the jackpot. Marcus wanted to believe David was wrong, needed to believe it, so he'd devised this test, borrowing his driver Thomas's uniform and SUV. Jennifer thought Marcus was in Tokyo on business. She'd called earlier requesting a car service to her sister's house in Connecticut for a family dinner. She had no idea her driver would be the man she'd agreed to marry. Now parked outside her brownstone in Brooklyn, Marcus's hands trembled on the steering wheel. The cap sat low over his eyes, and he'd added fake glasses and a subtle mustache. His heart hammered as Jennifer emerged, stunning in a navy dress, phone pressed to her ear. "I'm coming down now," she said, pulling open the rear door without even glancing at him. Marcus mumbled a greeting, voice pitched lower, accent slightly altered. She didn't recognize him. As they merged onto the highway, Jennifer made another call. "Sarah, it's me. I'm in the car. Can you talk?" Marcus's grip tightened on the wheel. This was it. "Girl, you won't believe what Marcus sent me yesterday," Jennifer continued, her voice carrying easily to the front seat. "A first-class ticket to Paris. Can you imagine?" "We're going next month." Her friend's response was inaudible, but Jennifer laughed. "I know, right? Honestly, Sarah, I need to tell you something I haven't told anyone else." Marcus's breath caught. "Here it comes. When I first met Marcus at that gala, I thought he was the waiter. Remember? I told you about spilling wine on that poor guy?" Sarah must have confirmed because Jennifer continued, "Yeah, that was him. I was so embarrassed, apologizing like crazy, and he just laughed. Didn't tell me who he was for the whole evening. We talked for 3 hours about everything. Books, traveling, our worst teaching stories. He told me about volunteering at his nephew's school. I gave him my number thinking he was this sweet, broke server who loved kids." Marcus's eyes widened. He remembered that night differently than he'd thought. "When I found out who he really was, I almost ran," Jennifer said softly. "I'm serious, Sarah. I called off our second date. Because I knew people would think exactly what you're thinking right now, that I'm with him for his money. And God, that kills me." There was a pause. Marcus could barely breathe. "No, listen." Jennifer's voice grew fierce. "You know my family. You know why I'm going to Connecticut today. It's Dad's birthday. And Mom's trying to pretend everything's fine, but they're drowning. The pharmacy bills, the mortgage they remortgaged twice, the loan sharks circling. I haven't told Marcus any of it because I don't want him to think I need rescuing. I don't want to be another person who sees him as a solution. Instead of a human being." Marcus nearly swerved into the next lane. "Jennifer's father was sick?" She'd never mentioned it. "Marcus asked me last week why I seemed distracted," Jennifer continued, her voice breaking. "I lied and said work was stressful. How do I tell him that the man I love might think I'm using him if I admit my family's falling apart? How do I ask for help without confirming every gold digger stereotype?" Tears streamed down Marcus's face. He was grateful for the divider, the anonymity. "You know what scares me most?" Jennifer whispered. "That he'll never believe I loved him before I knew. That waiter I spilled wine on, that's who I fell for. The guy who did funny voices reading Dr. Seuss to second graders. The man who cried watching Coco. Not the Forbes list guy. Never that guy. I wish I could prove it to him somehow. Just erase the money for one day and show him that if he lost everything tomorrow, I'd still be there. I'd still choose him. Every single time. More silence. Then Jennifer laughed wetly. What would I do? Same thing I do every day. Teach 30 kids their multiplication tables. Come home to our apartment, wherever. That would be, and curl up with him watching. Terrible reality TV. Sarah, money doesn't make you less lonely. It doesn't make your jokes funnier or your hugs warmer. Marcus thinks his wealth is what makes him valuable. I wish he could see what I see, that it's the smallest part of who he is. Marcus had to pull over. He signaled to the shoulder, hands shaking too badly to drive safely. Sir, is everything okay? Jennifer asked, concerned. He couldn't speak, couldn't turn around. After a moment, he managed, just need a moment. Low blood sugar. There's a rest stop in 2 miles, she said kindly. Take your time. I'm not in a rush. Of course she wasn't, because she was kind, because she noticed people, even drivers she'd never see again. They drove the remaining hour in relative silence. Marcus used the time to think, to plan, to realize how spectacularly wrong he'd been. When they finally pulled up to a modest ranch house in Connecticut, Jennifer leaned forward. Thank you so much. What do I owe you? It's covered, Marcus said, still not turning fully. Well, here. She pressed bills into his hand. Tip far too generous for a teacher's salary. Have a wonderful evening. As she walked toward the house, Marcus watched an older man open the door. Thin, clearly unwell, but his face transformed with joy at seeing his daughter. Jennifer hugged him carefully, mindfully, and Marcus saw her wipe her eyes. He drove around the block, parked, and called his assistant. Melissa, I need you to find out everything about Jennifer Morrison's family. Medical bills, debts, all of it. I want them cleared anonymously by tomorrow. And get me the next flight back from Tokyo. I'm coming home early. Sir, you're in New York. I know where I am, Melissa. Just do it. Next, he called David. You were wrong. And I was wrong. I'll explain later, but thank you for caring enough to warn me. Finally, he called Thomas. I owe you more than I can say. And I owe you a new uniform. This one's getting framed. 3 hours later, Marcus waited in Jennifer's apartment. She'd given him a key weeks ago, and he'd used it now, filling the space with white roses, her favorites, and the ring he'd been too afraid to offer. When Jennifer walked in, exhausted from the emotional family dinner, she froze. Marcus, you're supposed to be... I was your driver today, he said simply. The color drained from her face. What? I heard everything, Jen, your call with Sarah about your dad. About loving me before you knew. About wishing you could prove it. She sank onto the couch, hands covering her face. Oh my God, you probably think I knew it was you that I staged... No. He knelt before her, taking her hands. I know you had no idea, and I know I'm the biggest fool in New York. I tested you because I've been tested my whole life, and I forgot that not everyone keeps score. Your family's debts are gone, by the way. Anonymous donor. I figured you wouldn't accept help from your gold digger fiancée. She laughed through tears. You're not... Marcus, I never... I know. He pulled out the ring. You fell in love with a waiter. Lucky for you, he's very good at his day job. Jennifer Morrison, will you marry the whole person? The Forbes list guy and the Dr. Seuss voice guy? The man who definitely cried during Coco? It's a very emotional movie, she sobbed, nodding. Yes, yes to all of it. To all of you. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Marcus realized that his wealth had finally bought him something truly valuable, not her love, which had been freely given all along, but the truth. And the truth, uncomfortable as it had been to pursue, had set them both free. I'm sorry I doubted you, he whispered. I'm sorry I didn't trust you enough to be honest, she replied. They held each other in the growing darkness, two people learning that the most precious things can't be bought. Only built, trust, honesty, and love that sees past the disguises we all wear, straight through to the imperfect, beautiful truth beneath.